Hey guys, welcome back to the Unwracked Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Barry, and I'm joined by my co-host, Kyle Wilkes. We got an episode today where we're really just going to do a lot of Q&A. We're both very busy. We both have athletes at the North Americans that's going on currently today and tomorrow. And we figured we'd just start off by, Kyle, you've had a crazy month. You've had a couple victories. You had a trip. Like, tell us, just what the last month has been like for you.
Yeah, man. Last month has been crazy. I mean, this whole year has been kind of absolutely out of what I would have foreseen and planned for myself, or I would ever recommend for people. I sold a house, moved into an apartment, which was supposed to be short term. That turned to be 12 to 14 weeks in length, and then I had two shows, not just one. I had to move out right after I won the second overall. That next day, I had a moving truck and had to get everything out from one apartment to the house that we had purchased. And then 2 days later, I went on my bachelor party to Ibiza, which
Wow.
is a wild place to say the least. And now came right back. I was supposed to be at North Americans in Pittsburgh alongside you, but with the delays and the connections and stuff like that, it was just going to be super difficult. I'm feeling run down, and I had people on stage today just won a pro card, which is fantastic.
Congrats.
So it sucks that I can't be there, but at the same time, if I was flying trying to get pictures and they didn't come through, that would freak me out. If I was a client, I'd be pissed off. So so that wasn't the ideal plan. So the last month has been absolutely crazy. So starting with competing, the first show I did was in Lancaster. It was the Pennsylvania Muscle. It was the first time I did a Garrett Udit show. I'm very familiar. Anyone that knows me, I've resided in New Jersey all my life, except for 6 months that I was in Florida. So all of the shows I put people in from a regional level are always the Northeast shows, Steve shows, Mass shows, things like that. PA is a little different beast. I've never even traveled there very often, and yet alone compete there personally or had a competitor there. So the way it was run was super smooth. It was Gary does a great job. Gary's actually hosting North Americans as we speak. So the way he runs that, the regionals are just as smooth, which is fantastic because anyone, including yourself, in those NPC shows sometimes in the Northeast, they're a little hectic. And that's just kind of the New Yorkers, the Boston, the Jersey people maybe,
Yeah.
but just the way it's run is much different. So I did that show, won the overall. Didn't really like my look, if I'm being honest. It was good enough to win, which I guess is okay, being that there's some competitors that I beat that are competing tomorrow in the bodybuilding. But the following week, I was definitely fuller, harder, different look to the stage, which was my best to date look, which is my main goal when I kind of set out to do this. And then obviously, as people are listening to this and not seeing me on stage tomorrow, or when this came out, not seeing me place, I did not do North American. So everyone has mentioned, hey, you've got your entry fee paid by winning the overall both shows. And I didn't show up. Right? Well, I was never supposed to show up. I had the bachelor trip planned, as I mentioned, and that kind of just where my life is now. I have to prioritize things that are more important, so to speak, than bodybuilding. So yes, there are some more things that are more important. But it wasn't because I was scared to show up or anything like that. I just never had the intention of doing it. It was just more of a timing thing. I get married at the end of the year. So, life has been lifing.
Yeah. You mentioned something too about like, it sucks when you're stuck in connections or you're on the plane and I had that situation on my way out here where my first leg of my flight, Wi-Fi was perfect. Second leg, which was right around 8 a.m. until about 9:30, which is when like everybody is checking in. People on the
Yeah.
West Coast are waking up, people in the Midwest are checking in. So I had no access, and I felt really bad for the clients that were doing this show that were like sending me messages and trying to like, hey, I'm on my meal too now because some of these guys are up at 4:30 East Coast time. As a coach, and I wanted to ask you this because you obviously had a guy win a pro card today. Do you feel like you do better work in person or better at home?
Honestly, I always tell people, I think the only thing that changes being in person is maybe the person feels more at ease and they're directly getting your time because you're in person. But the entire prep, I look at pictures. I sit behind my desk, ideally in the same location. Again, I've been all over the place, but I look at your pictures at the same time when you're checking in. I'm able to take my time, analyze, assess, look at the variables that I'm trying to look at, and I make the changes in a clear and conscious way. Versus if I'm on a plane, I've learned from the past, I'm sure you have as well, just because the plane says it has Wi-Fi doesn't mean it has Wi-Fi, nor does it mean the pictures are going to download. So the last thing I ever want to do is count on me being able to produce results from a plane. So when that's the case, usually I have, at least what I find to be helpful from a coaching perspective is, hey, in the event you send a check-in and I can answer, this is what we're going to be doing. That way, at least I can do damage control to a degree versus the person saying,
Yeah.
hey, I haven't eaten or had anything to drink because you didn't say so the last 3 hours, you know?
Well, you both know if he or she didn't get a response from you, and you know that you couldn't get that response out to them, you at least know what happened in that 3 to 4 hour period, so you can now adjust based off the metrics you're getting in on the other side. So, yeah, no, I say like, when people are like, do you think you do better work in person, or do you think you do better? I'm with you in the sense that, like you said, we're getting pictures to evaluate physiques every single week, every single day. It's kind of keeping all scenarios and all variables the same when I'm looking at someone through a screen. And I feel like, when you go to a show and you're with an athlete or two, but then like, not that we're celebrities, but we're well known. We've been in the industry for many years. So we know everybody and everybody knows us, and they want to say, hey, catch up, talk shop. Maybe someone who's like a fan of one of the shows, they want to get a picture. So my point is, you're trying to bring your athlete from like check-ins to the hotel room, which is a 5 minute walk. It turns into like a 35, 40 minute thing. And now you're missing out on time that you should be doing more check-ins or just evaluating your athlete back in the hotel room. That's the thing that, while I love people, it's just like, I'd love to talk to you, but I got to get back on task. And being in front of a computer screen, there's all that noise that's just blocked out.
For sure. So, and you said it best. By no means a celebrity, but when I'm at a show, generally, my work productivity declines significantly. I'm not
Yeah.
answering many check-ins. I'm not able to kind of do what I normally would be able to do, as opposed to just being at home to where it's like, hey, me, my fiance, and my dog, it's just easier for me to kind of navigate, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like it creates a guilt sensation in me when people know you like Monday through Thursday, you're getting back to them within an hour, 3 hours, but then it's like you've been busy with someone all day, and you've been walking through the venue, you've been talking to friends that you've known for years that you only see at these shows. You kind of feel guilty where you're like, hey, I'm getting back to you at the next day, or I'm getting back to you at midnight, and it is a drain on your sleep, which obviously can affect your decision making. So anyway, all right, let's hop into some questions, okay? I want to start with some of them that you picked up off your story. We'll just start right from the front with where underscore Hunter asks how to program diets, how to split up micronutrients throughout the day. What do you feel about that?
So I think the first thing I usually ask people is, what kind of job do you have? What is your occupation? Based on that, let's just say you're a construction worker and you could have a twin that works a desk job. That to me is going to produce two different types of needs. That one person's more, their energy levels and expenditure is much higher. So I'm probably going to give them a little bit more carbohydrates, especially in the early hours of the day, as opposed to someone like me for a part of my career, or especially this part of the career, where I'm just sitting behind a computer desk. I don't need 100 grams of carbs in the morning if I'm not training until the evening time. So I'm going to space out my macronutrients much differently. So that's I guess, in a nutshell, I look at that to start. Obviously, we care about the statistics, how much muscle someone has, and the body fat, things like that. But logistics speaking, I always think if you had a twin and his demand was up here and the others is down here, where do they need to be? What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously very similar. I always look at what the athlete's been doing, and I try to look for holes in the plan or what I deem to be holes, and I
Yeah.
kind of start there, Like, let's just throw an example. Sometimes you get a woman who's eating like 60 grams of protein per meal, and it's spread out, over 5 meals. That's 250 grams of protein for a 140-pound figure athlete, or let's just say for an example. To me, right off the bat, if she's complaining of any digestive issues, it's probably the protein. Let's start pulling back on that macro, right? Like, and honestly, it's probably going to give us more leeway to push some of the other energy macronutrients like fats and carbs. So that's kind of, I always just kind of look at what you've been doing, what's your feedback, how do you feel like you've been progressing? Because maybe they left a previous coach because they didn't get along. Maybe the plan was really well written, the plan was written for them, but they just didn't get along very well. There wasn't good feedback, the check-ins weren't going well, and they just wanted someone that's going to be a little bit more in tune to their mental style, I guess. So, because I'm not someone that thinks that my way is always the right way. I'm not dogmatic. It's like if you got a good plan and you're, let's say, in a fat loss phase and you're dropping 2 pounds a week, I'd be an idiot to go in there and start changing things up, right?
Yeah, there's no reason to overhaul things sometimes, as you mentioned, digestively. An important question. I want to say it's more important than occupation or less important, but it's something to consider, right? What phase are we in? Sometimes I'll take someone's caloric intake and I'll say, hey, I'm going to keep it the same, but because it was comprised of like no carbohydrates and high fat, let's just see what happens when I put high carbs, low fat. We'll keep the calories exactly the same. We're just replacing, 25 grams of carbs at 9 grams of fat. See what it looks like.
I always tell people too, like, we don't go into this thing knowing like what an athlete will respond to. A lot of times we're literally just trying something and then reacting to it. Like, okay, like you said, we're pulling 60 grams of fats out and we're replacing it with 200 grams of carbs. I just want to see what happens to your physique. Do you look better? Do you feel better? Are you performing better in the gym? Are you reaching your goals of fat loss or muscle gain? Like, what does that change elicit? Or does it not work, you know?
Absolutely. And for those that are wondering, um, protein carbs are the same caloric output, right? A gram is 4 kcals, fat 9. That's how we're just converting. So,
Yeah.
yes.
But in terms of like micronutrients, I don't ever I very rarely do micronutrient testing, like, unless I think someone's lacking on B12 or, iron or something else, really it's like come with a competent plan. I want to try to get veggies in the majority of your meals, something green, and then I want to get fruit in as much as I can, whether it's 2 or 3 smaller portions per day. I think that
Yeah.
covers most of your needs.
I think that's the most vital ones. And then a lot of people are scared of like salt. So that's where I'll say, hey, let's add in a quarter teaspoon of salt with all your meals, maybe double it for your pre-workout, something like that.
Do you measure your salt with like a teaspoon or like one of those little things, or do you like what I do? I'll tell you real quick is I measure it by shaker, like turns on the salt shaker. Like for me, it's 15 turns on the salt shaker for every meal, whether it's like a cream of rice meal, a rice and chicken meal, whatever it is. So I know that that's my standard. And if I'm lacking, or maybe I did a little bit more exertion, I probably need to increase it to 17 or 18 turns for a few meals. Do you do something similar?
So I have always done like a 5 to 7 cranks.
Yeah. That's what I'm
Now
talking
I
about.
get people that are neurotic and they're just like, hey, what should, a quarter teaspoon weigh? Technically, if you have a good scale, 1.5 grams is what a quarter teaspoon would weigh. So whatever way works for people, most convenient and in most cases, especially if you're on the go, you're doing the cranks. It's just a matter of how is your crank look? How much is it producing?
That'll be a nice little pull-out segment. How does your crank look?
Yes, especially with the hand gesture.
Exactly. All right. So one of my clients, Josh Fodera, asks, traveling with gear, yes or no?
Domestically, sure. Internationally, good luck.
Yeah, exactly. You're looking at because everyone thinks that TSA is like customs, and it's like no, TSA is looking for bombs and they're looking for weapons, anything that can destroy the plane, right, and bring it down.
Absolutely.
They're not DEA, they're not FBI, they work with those agencies in certain instances, but I even asked an agent straight up one time because I had all these little white bags of powder, and they looked straight up like cocaine, and I'm like, it's not cocaine, bud. And he's like, wouldn't care if it was, and just kept on passing it through. Like, and he said it in a way that I believed him.
Do you get a couple clients that ask you, because I get it frequently when they are preparing for shows and contest prep, they don't want to bring the vial, so they preload syringes. I've had
Yeah.
very personally bad experiences when I preload and I fly with them. They leak out. So I
Hmm.
always tell people again, bring the vial. It's okay. Put it in your check bag. Don't put it in your carry-on, and
Yep.
usually you're a-okay.
Yeah. If you're going to do the preloaded thing, get a dedicated, you've seen like the, what do you call them? It's like I use a cigar case, like a travel cigar case, so it's got kind of a hard edge to it, so that nothing can squeeze the box and then push on the plunger of the syringe and push anything out. But like you said, it's like just bring your vials and bring a couple syringes.
Very
Make it
easy.
easy. All right, so because you've experienced this yourself over the last month, this is from Jelly VDD. That's a name. How to train the last 2 to 3 weeks of contest prep when you're feeling flat and losing reps in the gym.
I'm always one. I keep my training the same, man. If anything, I'll pay more attention to the clock. Make sure I'm not taking a longer time, dragging ass, something like that. Strength wise, I think when programming is on point and you're not playing catch up to where all of a sudden you made a drastic pull in calories, you should keep your strength. You should never get really weaker. You maybe hit a point where you're not getting stronger, but I sure as hell wasn't getting weaker until maybe I was a week out from the first show to where, again, I just wasn't sleeping much. So my strength is probably fine, but I don't add more volume. I'll say that. So that last week or two, I'm kind of just making sure I'm getting some good blood flow. I'm not going to have an off-season skin bursting pump, regardless of if I had a refeed or not. So I keep it very consistent. The intensity is high. If anything, the duration of the workout just starts to become a little bit shortened in those days leading up because I'm pushing metabolites. I'm not looking to get inflammation and have water on my frame, things like that. What is your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I always kind of cringe when I hear someone on a podcast or athletes say, like, well, the last phase is a prep when you're not strong anymore. And to me, like, strength is a mindset. Like, and I'm not saying to try for your PRs or try these 3 rep maxes, but it's like your 8 to 12 rep ranges or your maxes on those 8 to 12 rep ranges, they should be within like 10% from the start of prep to the end of prep. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really don't think. I think if you're going into a prep thinking you're going to have to pull back on your strength towards the end, it's just it's kind of a loser mentality, and it's like, yeah, your muscle's probably going to show up a little soft. It's just one of those things. Like for me, it's like it's almost like a not a motivational thing, but it's like an inside, just kind of like my calling of like, I'm going to keep my strength all the way through. Like I'm a bodybuilder first, and yeah, I'm stripping the fat off, but like I'm not losing my strength. Are you kidding me? Like I'll make educated decisions. I'm not going to try squats with 4 plates at, 2 days out from a show, but most of my stuff I should be right around the same rep ranges.
Agreed. I generally think, if anything, if someone were to tell me, or if you were a client and you said, "Hey, Kyle, I've noticed I'm significantly weaker 2 weeks in a row," I would say, "Okay, well, now we're probably experiencing some muscle loss. There's a
Yeah.
problem. Something's
Yeah.
wrong. Maybe you need more rest. Maybe we pulled calories too much. Something like that." But absolutely agree. It's a mindset thing.
You've done a lot of zero carb days in the past, right?
Plenty. Yep. Plenty.
I think you and me have to get in shape in a very similar manner. And where I was going to go with that question was, did you ever lose strength even on zero carbs?
Honestly, not really, man. It's just more,
Me
I'm just
neither.
tired or mentally my cognitive functioning isn't what it is used to being.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
I'm with you there, dude. Like even on like, 2 week stretches of zero carbs, I was still hack squatting 8 plates at like 4 or 5 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks out. And it's like, because it's just that's what I do. I'm a bodybuilder. I need to maintain my strength at least at the minimum, if not continue to try to gain a little bit.
For
So,
sure.
okay.
And people, I'll ask you this, especially once they see it on paper that there's no carbs or there's trace carbs from just veggies, they'll say, "Oh, I can't get a pump today, coach."
I mean, here's the thing. My first thing is like, okay, we can create a pump with water and electrolytes. So if we pump
100%.
those up just enough, and we have so many products, whether from the PED range to the natural supplement range, that you can recreate a pump. Are you going to have a pump for 45 to 60 minutes in your workout?
Right.
No. It's usually like when you get to the second or third set of your first exercise through like maybe like almost to the third exercise, you got a really good pump and then it starts to fade, which to me that just shows me like you're having a natural response. You're getting into the right kind of condition and because think about it, you go on stage, you're peaked for about 5 minutes. Like your absolute best is about 5 minutes. It's not a 60 to 80 minute duration that you're creating this monster pump and nothing's going away.
Correct.
So that's just kind of how I look at it. Um, are HGH and insulin thickening the waist and how to prevent it? From Song High Run.
So, simply put, no, I don't think those are the culprits. I think the culprit is massive amounts of food, not paying attention to digestive cues, and just gut dysfunction that starts to creep up, especially if you're banging orals, things like that. I think that's what becomes problematic. And then it's exacerbated by abusing insulin, abusing growth hormone over time. What do you think?
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to add is like well, primarily it's just overconsumption and overeating. But if you're like, let's say you're blaming insulin because you're using 20 units of insulin a meal, and now you got to eat that amount of carbohydrates to keep up with that amount of insulin intake. Like you're matching your carb intake to your insulin, not the other way around. So now
Right.
you're force feeding food so you don't go hypo all the time. I think that's the only way you can blame insulin, but really it's not the insulin, it's the person programming the insulin that's the culprit, you know? So yeah, I
Yeah,
agree with you.
very rarely have I met someone that has a thick waist that tells me, "Oh, I eat under 2,000 calories."
That is dead on 1000%. Um, the other thing is too, you can't expect to put over, say, your career of 8 to 12 years of actual bodybuilding and putting on 50 pounds of muscle. There's no way, because you're going to get that much stronger over that time. There's no way that those loads aren't contributing to a little bit of waist thickening. So, because something's got to support your upper body talking to your lower body, right? And your lower back and your waist are the trunk system that are keeping it all in place. So yeah, it's going to get strong. You plant a tree outside, it's going to grow over 30 years. It's going to get thicker at the base over 30 years, right? So blaming one drug or two drugs, it's no, it's the nature of the beast of bodybuilding. Everything's getting bigger on some extent, you know. Um, all right. What should a natural, oh, that's a good one from Matt Brahman. What should a natural bodybuilder check off their list before starting their first cycle?
Great question. Fantastic
Yeah,
question. Probably
it's
one of
making
the
me
better
think for a
ones we'll
minute.
ever get. In no particular order. I don't want to, because that'll take us time to kind of make sure we prioritize everything. But what comes to mind for me is a duration thing. How long have you been training? How long have you actually been following a diet? And by diet, I don't mean, hey, I eat 4 meals a day. I'm talking at least 4 meals a day, the same type of foods, all the meals. You're tracking your meals. That's the first thing that comes to mind. So that coupled with training, those are going to be the number one and two. And then let's just say we have someone that starts at age 13. Okay. Not that I recommend starting at age 13 to track your meals, be a kid, enjoy life. I think at least being 17, 18 years of age before you introduce PEDs is probably pretty wise. I know everyone in this day and age is not going to take that information. I know people that are much younger, but I think you can do a lot to build your base. I'm not saying push your natural potential to your 24 and then your natural test starts to decline or anything like that. And plus, there's more literature out there showing that that's not always the case for sure. But those are the things that come to mind. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you can show that you've been living the lifestyle for like 2 years, meaning, like you said, eating the 5 to 6 meals a day, dedicated meal plan, you're not veering from your meal plan because your buddy comes over with a pizza and you suddenly said, okay, I'm not going to eat my chicken and rice. I'm going to share this pizza with you. You're not easily swayed, okay? Which shows that you have dedication and that your goals are more important than any momentary satisfaction. Okay, so you've shown that level of discipline. I think, I know back in the day they used to say you needed to be in the like 400, 300, 200 club, like 400 squat, 300 bench, and like a 200-pound dumbbell row or something like that. I don't think that's the case because you got lightweights and you got middleweights that probably can't do those poundages. But I think you should be able to show that you've gone from point A to point B in a strength manner to the point where, let's say you were squatting 225 for 10, you're up to like 345, 365 for 10 reps. You've shown that, like, hey, I know how to progress naturally. It's starting to slow down a little bit. Now I'm ready to step into the dark side.
Absolutely.
Okay. Polish beef patty, great name. I'm ready early at 2 weeks out. How can I slowly increase food leading into the show? I mean, you kind of said it in the question. Slowly increase food leading into the show.
Yeah, so I would say perhaps they're looking more for quantitative figures
Okay.
here. Just spitballing. Let's just say your base diet was 1,600 calories. Don't go to 3,000.
Yeah.
Maybe go to 1,900. See how your body responds. In a perfect world, if someone's ready and you just slowly titrate their food up, 300, 400 calories, they're probably going to hold conditioning. They might even drop a little bit if their metabolism is really rocking. So again, small increases over a duration. Do not go from 1,500 calories to 3,000 to 4,500 because you're just going to put on a ton of water weight at first and then body fat very quickly.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add to that is I would probably, in that situation, start adding calories to like the peri-workout window, like in that
Yes.
pre, intra, and post. and then start to slowly work my way back out. Like if we were doing 30 grams of carbs pre, 30 intra, and like 60 post, I might try to add a total of 50 grams of carbs split up between those three carbohydrate situations for a total of 200 calories, and monitor and see what happens. And then from there, okay, let's say, weight is maintaining, the look's actually better because now you're just staying a little bit fuller. I might start to work outside of that window to maybe the second meal post workout, and then maybe like the next meal post workout, until eventually I'm kind of adding these little micro increases of carbs predominantly, to every single meal. But I like to start from the peri-workout window and work my way outwards. You do something similar, or do you like to just say like,
Absolutely. I always, again, I'm people that diet with me know when I'm pulling carbs, I'll try to keep them pre always, post, and then maybe meal one. But other than that, if someone's in a hard dieting phase, you're not going to see me have carbs in all of the meals most of the time. So
yeah.
when I go to add them back, that's the same order I go in peri-workout window. Then I'll add them maybe one meal early in the day, and then slowly but surely fill them in.
Yeah, same idea. This one's from one of my clients, Roy Zenz. He wants a John Meadows story. All right. I'm trying to think of one maybe I haven't told. Do you have any John Meadows stories? Were you ever close with him, or did you ever hang out with him?
I have a training video I did with Guy Cisterino and John right before he passed, actually. So you guys could look that up. We did some chest. That was my first encounter in person for a longer duration, other than just a, hey, what's up? How are you doing? How's everything with the family? So that'd be my story. It was what you see on camera is what you get off camera with John. So I think that's one thing that I could always attest to. What about you?
So the first time I went and stayed at his house back in 2015, it was no, sorry, it was early 2016. He was getting ready for the Arnold Classic. So he was like 5 weeks out. And I showed up on a Monday and I was going to stay for, I think, 4 days. And the first day I get there, his wife, as I walk in, Mary, who's a wonderful woman, like the nicest woman, most giving. She's like, "Hey, Andrew, so nice to meet you. My whole family was sick over the last week up to this weekend with the flu. I don't know if you want to stay here with us." Like, she's like, "I sanitized one of the boys' rooms. If that doesn't work, we can set you up in a hotel down the road." And I'm like, "No, I came out to hang out with John, man. Like, I want to really soak up, his knowledge and just, he's just one of these people that he he's such a good mentor. You know what I mean? And so, I really want to just hang out with him. So I'm like, "Nah, I'm fine. I got an iron stomach. I'm not going to get sick." Well, the very first day, no, so we go to the gym immediately. I'm fine. We're having dinner, but as I'm sitting there, we're eating fish, rice, and beans. And I'm like, I have no appetite. This is really weird. We just had a really hard chest day. Something's going on. And so anyway, I go to bed and I wake up at like 2 in the morning and I puke my brains out. Like I have the full blown flu. And we have legs the next morning, right? And I'm at like 9 a.m. We're gonna eat breakfast at like 7:30, just some oatmeal and some protein powder and peanut butter. I didn't even eat that. I just had no appetite, and I didn't want to tell John I was sick, right? So we get in there and we do like two different ham curls. And we're on the leg press, and we're just we're doing sets of 15, adding a plate every set till we get to like 12 or 13 plates. And like right when I got done a set, I bolted off and I just started puking. Now, other people that were watching would be like, "Oh, John's putting someone through a hard workout, you know?" But John looked at me instantly. He's like, "You got the flu, don't you?" He's like, "I can tell." He's like, "Do you want to shut this down?" And I'm like, "Dude, how often do I get to train legs with you? Like, F no.
Right.
Like, let's do this, you know?" And so we had a hard friggin' leg workout. And I swear to God, every single set, I was going to the trash can of a Lifetime Fitness and I was puking in that thing the whole time, to the point where when we were done, like, I was like, "Let me go get this bag. Like, I can't leave this here. This is disgusting, you know?" Um, so yeah, I trained legs with John Meadows, having the flu, and I lived to tell the tale. So.
As far as going off of that, because it brings back full circle memory here. That day that I had the opportunity to train was about an hour and a half ride I had to take, and this is when I had my corporate job. So, from 8 to 5, I don't know, good day, usually 8 to 7. I'm tied to the computer. I got to make sure the mouse is green, I'm active, all of that while I'm doing my coaching on the side. But guy had called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to train with John today. You want to join us?" And me being who I am, I'm like, "Fuck yeah." However, I got work. So in my head, I'm like, how can I time this? And that's when I just said, "Hey, I have an emergency. I have a doctor's appointment. I got to go." That's kind of how I was able to do that session.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. On that note, let me ask you, when you were doing the corporate thing, working in, finance, how hard was it to coach people? Like, were you literally one hand on the computer doing your day to day, and then immediately like quickly shutting down that screen, going to your email, okay, so and so checked in, I got to get back to him, or did you save it all till like nighttime, early morning?
Nighttime, early morning. So any of my OG clients, I'm notorious for sending out emails between 2 and 4. That is kind of when I would say, hey, this is what I need you to do. So anyone that was checking in the morning, if they're in prep, it's usually quick text. I'll have them texting me their pictures and I'll just respond through that. As I've grown in popularity over the years and just also having balance in life and now being fortunate enough to not have to do the corporate thing, things have changed and I have apps and stuff like that to make it much more easy for everyone. But it was very difficult. I've tried a couple of times when the pandemic happened. It was very easy for me to kind of have more of a system that you probably have because again, I'd have one screen here and then on my other screen I can just do my check-ins and it's super simple. But when I'm in the office, I tried it a few times and there were comments made in our team weekly meetings where, hey guys, make sure we're only doing uh, work-related stuff on our computers. And meanwhile, my whole corporate computer had all the folders, every Andrew Berry, this person, this person. That's how I kept all the diets, just because I can only use one computer.
Yeah, that's wild, man. Yeah, it's kind of funny because I'm thinking back. I wasn't in an office setting. I was personal training people, between 6 and 10 clients a day, and it's like it's funny because I just remember. I think my life is stressful now, and it is, and I know yours is too. But it's like it was equally as stressful then because it was like, okay, I got 3 minutes till this other client's going to walk into the gym to, start warming up. I'm going to get back to someone really quick and try to bang out two check-ins as fast as I can, and then obviously getting up really early to try to get people that checked in late at night and early in the morning. So yeah, it's like looking back on it, I'm like, how the heck did like we get that done while having a whole nother job at the same time and keeping a good level of service with our clients?
Yeah, and I think that's where sometimes people they play the numbers game, and for me, it was always the quality. Like, hey, I'm not going to answer you in 12 hours during this
Yep.
time frame. During
Yeah.
this time frame, but when I do answer you, it's we're making the right decisions. It's more than just hey, keep going, thumbs up. It's very detailed and stuff like that. So that's how I kind of built my system at the time because I had no other choice.
Gotcha. It's interesting. For Brian Tweer, DHB in the off season, do you use it? Have you used it with people? Any personal experience with clients? You?
I have used it in the off season, not in prep. Usually, at least from my experience, it is more painful type of injection, bothersome. And anytime I have sites that are bothering me, it interferes with training. Strength wise, it helps. Hair loss was facilitated, to say the least, at least in my experience with it. Um, so I wasn't really a fan. It was just something that caught, like anything in life, it catches a trend and everyone says, oh, this is the next best thing. I don't think it was a make or break. I could do without and be perfectly fine. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, usually I don't recommend it unless a client's like, hey, I respond well to it, or hey, I've wanted to try this, maybe in lieu of something like Tren, or, I feel like it's one of those compounds that can be substituted for several different things. And so it's kind of like in the right situation, I'll recommend it to someone. Like I've got someone, not that I'm trying to stay away from Tren, but sometimes people, hey, what do you think about doing this prep without Tren this year? I'm like, yeah, let's absolutely try it. And then we might try to throw a little DHB in at some point and see if it's eliciting, I would say, the positives of trend without the negatives of trend, the mental side effects, the anxiety. Um, so yeah, it all depends on the right situation, right? It's one of those things, but it's not like I'm gonna say it's not a bread and butter compound, you know.
Yeah.
Um, all right, let's get to another one here. All right, Kyle. Next question from Big Sandy 123. When will the next critique of fans' physiques be? When do you think?
The next critique, we can do them and should do them more often. So, again, to submit and be an applicant, you can either message myself or Andrew. Ideally, Andrew, message Andrew, or I will direct you to him, either with your information, but there's a form. That way, we have all of the information needed and we don't have to give you some nonchalant answer and we can kind of just keep it very specific and tailor it toward you. So, at your convenience, guys.
Excellent. All right. Next one, also from Big Sandy. How did your romantic relationship start, and how does it stay afloat amidst bodybuilding?
My romantic relationship, you want me to start first?
Yeah, you go first. It's easier when I ask the question and then you answer.
It started in the DMs. She was a fan, right? You were a fan. I am kidding. Um, it did start via Instagram, I guess. We had been following each other for a number of years. She lived in New Jersey, and I kind of just shot my shot. One thing led to another. Met up in person. I'm a fine gentleman. Wined and dined her, and she fell in love. And that's kind of been it since, in a nutshell. And she's talking, but you guys can't hear her, which is fantastic.
I can hear, so tell her to shut the fuck up. No, I'm kidding. Um, no, so yeah, I mean, so that's a true love story. Started with Instagram, led to actual courting, and now you guys have a big event coming up in I think December.
In December, yes, we have a quite the big extravaganza, good party, we'll call it, a wedding. And yeah, as far as what Big Sandy had asked in terms of, I guess, preserving the relationship, navigating with bodybuilding and competing, is that kind of what they asked?
Yeah,
It's difficult, man. It's like anything in life. You need to ensure that you have your priorities. There's a time and a place to be full-fledged bodybuilding. As people know, I've been prepping. Didn't really, a lot of people didn't know I was prepping, but obviously, voila, I prepped. Yeah, she had to take a back burner a little bit, and that comes with the territory. If I told her, hey, I'm full-fledged seeking to be an Olympian, I don't think I would have the relationship that I want to have, to say the least. I think that's why you'll see many competitors. Bodybuilding is selfish when it comes to that. I think anyone that's selfless isn't always the best competitor. But Andrew, you have tons of years competing, and you also have a significant other that continues to compete. So how is that
yeah.
for you?
So I had already graduated college. This is way back in 2006, so people can date my age based off that. And she was still in school, and she was on my buddy's couch tutoring him in I don't know some subject. And I would go over to his house because I was broke, poor, and I was living in my buddy's home gym at the time, and I needed a place to kind of hang out and watch TV. And this is before Instagram. This is like before iPhones. There was a lot of flip phones, so it wasn't like DMing or liking each other's pictures. Um, so anyway, I just hit on her, and she kind of liked my confidence, because I think she could tell, not to toot my own horn, but like I was a man and not a boy, and she was used to like boys in college, if you get what I'm saying. And we just started out as friends, going for walks and stuff, and I'd stop by her work, bring her coffee. And then, I was getting back into bodybuilding, and she was showing an interest in it, at least as a spouse or a friend. And we ended up becoming in a relationship, and she moved in, and we got engaged very shortly afterwards. And here's a funny thing. We got engaged about 16 or 17 years ago. We still haven't gotten married yet, just because bodybuilding and business and everything happened, that we were just like, I don't want to spend a lot of money on a wedding. I'd rather put this money towards this investment, or, making our life better for the future. But I got her into competing. She'd go to shows with me, and after a while, she'd be like, "Do you think I could beat that girl in that class right there?" And my answer would always be like, "You don't know until you stand next to her. So if you want to do this, let's go all in." And she trained really hard for 2 years and really did all the right things, dieting, all that stuff. So when I say that she treated herself like a professional before she even got on stage, like she really did. And she had a very short amateur career. She did an amateur show, won it. Then we went and did one more amateur show, the Atlantic States, which is a big show, as you know, Kyle. And she won her class of 16 girls. And then she did the Universe about a month later, and she got fourth. And then 6 months later, she went and did nationals and won her pro card out of 44 girls.
Wow.
So that was kind of, it was about 11-month process for her to go pro. And she was my first pro, which is kind of awesome. As a coach and as a, spouse, it's like, it's really cool to have that connection. And I'm the only coach she's ever had. We've been, she's done, I think, 27 shows at this point, 24 of them, 25 of them being pro shows, I think
Wow.
23 of them being pro shows. So, but in terms of making it work, I mean, I tell everyone this, you know, initially you're going to be super attracted to each other, right? That's what gets you guys involved with each other. But after that, like that lust kind of fades a little bit. It's more like mutual attraction to morals and to how you want to live your life. Like that's what's going to sustain a long-term relationship. And I think that's what's been, bodybuilding is a cornerstone of our lifestyle, staying healthy, staying fit, exercising, and always just, like you said, making sure you're putting your life in priority and putting things in order the right way.
Yeah,
And if we thought that anything related to bodybuilding or business or whatever was interfering with our relationship, we can have a sit down and we'll talk about it. And we come up with a plan of action together as partners versus I'm doing this for me or she's doing that for her. I think that's the key thing is how are we doing this together? Um,
absolutely.
all right. So one of my clients, Luke Shaughnessy, wants to know about how to structure a 1.5 to 2 year off season. Example, PED pushes, health phases, mini cuts. It's kind of a big question.
Huge question. Last 2 years. Um, I presume because of the duration, they need to make leaps and bounds of progress, which many people do. That's the reality. It's just hard to think like that. And sometimes we need those shorter term goals like, hey, I want to compete every year once and kind of see where I'm at. But you would realistically, I always look at push phases as short as 12 weeks, as long as maybe 30 weeks. At some point, I'm switching compounds out as there's no point in keeping something in for 24 weeks, I'd say, for the most part. But trying to get lab work at least every 3 to 5 months. Even if someone's having a hard time, as we know, especially in the Northeast, sometimes it's hard to get lab work. But it's been much easier nowadays. And as far as from a body fat standpoint, I try to keep my guys lean. I've always been that way. I'm not someone that's going to do the Dorian Yates to where you're 60 pounds heavier and then you got to cut down body fat because I just don't think it's healthy, number one, nor the most effective. The reality is. So I'm more looking at things, hey, this is more of a bulking phase. Now we're going to kind of maintain our health phase. Maybe we'll have a mini cleanup for some people because they're staying so lean and adhering so well, and the genetics play a good role. I can kind of get more out of those push phases to where I'm reaching new highs in body weight. I think the one thing that people sometimes get tripped up on is when I say stay lean, I don't mean sub 7% body fat, okay? I mean sub 15% body fat, generally speaking, right? I don't think anything after 15% for most of us, even myself, who is definitely full-fledged, more endomorph, you don't need to be sitting up there 20% body fat. That's definitely not good. You're not using partitioning nutrients very well, and you're not putting on muscle at an effective rate. You might be strong, but that's kind of how I look at it. So it's a jam-loaded question, but
Yeah.
if we had to put it on paper, which I think is something fascinating that we could do in the future for an individual case, it wouldn't be just slamming drugs month 1 to month 18 or month 24, nor would it be, hey, I'm eating 3,000 calories above my maintenance for 18 months. It's always going to be phases where we are now going to have to pull back on food, perhaps in the gym performance wise, you're just not getting stronger. You feel like your body's beat up. Sometimes you have injuries here and there. So, despite having this plan for 2 years, okay, we have to pull back a little bit. Let's change our training style. So, and training is a whole other facet of the beast, right? I'm not going for strength gains for 24 months. I might have 8 months where I'm focused on, hey, how strong can I get? And then I want to volumize this. So,
Yep.
what do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. I mean, it's in bodybuilding, it's near impossible to have a crystal ball and say what your plan is going to be exactly in terms of cycles, food, off season, because we're dealing with human beings. We're dealing with human beings, and shit happens, right? Like maybe someone's stress levels through the roof, and even though you're in the middle of your blast and you're trying to make all this progress, maybe their boss is asking them to work an extra 20 hours a week, and they can't get to the gym 5 days. They can only get to the gym 2 to 3 days, right? So the plan diverts and it changes. So I think really the main factors that we got to look at are, and this is for athletes. Athletes need to really be real with their feedback. Just because we plan to do an 18 to 20 week blast, be honest. Like, are you feeling beat up? Are your joints hurting? Are you losing sleep? Are you losing appetite? Like, let's make sure the plan works for you. And it might mean we're doing shorter phases. It might mean we're doing longer phases. Main things for me, insulin sensitivity, and then getting adequate sleep and appetite. Those are the main things I really like to watch for. Because if I develop a plan for someone, like say it's loaded with 6,000 calories, and they physically can't eat those meals, right? If they're throwing up, or they're having diarrhea, or they're just having a number of issues. It makes no sense for me to keep on trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. So it's like it's just got to be really tailored to the client and to the time of year that they're in with their stress and everything. Okay. This is from Danny. Um, where do you see bodybuilding progressing within the next 10 years? I should say your client, Danny.
My client Danny.
I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I feel like an idiot.
No, it's okay. Where do I see bodybuilding progressing? I guess they mean in general with the sport. I think
Yeah,
as we have seen the last 10 years, I mean, 10 years ago, social media wasn't really a thing. Had it been, I think we would see a lot different. I would be very fascinated to see what would have come about, the shit talkers and stuff like that. But I
yeah,
think it's going to continue to grow at a very rapid rate. I think we'll see more divisions. They're going to adjust certain things that they're looking for, especially in the female divisions, because as we see, bikini, if you look back 10 years ago, the look that wins bikini, the Olympia winners now, look nothing like the Miss Olympia bikini winner 10 years ago. And I think you're going to see that in many divisions. And you already see it. For example, the first classic physique Olympia
yep.
winner, right? Looks
Hmm.
nothing like a Chris Bumstead or something like that. So I think it's going to be very interesting to watch. Obviously, again, going back, if I had a crystal ball, I'd be one step ahead of everyone here. But it's kind of cool sometimes to be present and just to kind of adapt to the changing times, the changing protocols, drugs, arms, stuff like that. What do you think?
Yeah. I think, I mean, to your point too, like I was thinking instantly of the men's physique, Mark Anthony, the original men's physique champion. No disrespect to him, but today would he turn pro? Yeah, the conditioning level, absolutely not. I mean, guys today, I mean, you see some of the guys, like some of the good coaches like Ariel are bringing guys in with cuts on cuts, which is why he has that nickname, one of the reasons, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I got a question to kind of take it a little different direction. What do you think about the fit model division? And I'll give you my opinion first, just because, well, because I want to say something about it. But, well, I'm 50-50 on it. Like right off the bat, I don't think it should be an Olympia division or even a pro division necessarily. I think it should be an entry level division that you're using to progress into bikini. Or what they should do is make it a pro division only so they set the actual standard that we want to see the amateurs reaching. Because I'll be honest, I've seen a lot of substandard physiques that are getting pro cards in the fit model division over the last 3 or 4 months. And to me, it's like, no offense to you ladies, but some of you look like adolescent girls that are just hitting that signature shot. And I don't want to sound like a hater, but it's just to me, being a competitor should be a very hard thing. It should not be an entry level. I can just decide to start going getting my gym membership and eating a few clean meals and getting to a certain level condition, and I can pop on stage. To me, there's like a sacred right to it in a sense.
No, that's a great way to put it. I think I wouldn't mind it seeing being a natural quote unquote division to where they do drug tests for it, just like at university drug tests for certain divisions, stuff like that. Um, I think that would be a good segue to make sure the division doesn't grow into something where they now need something beneath it. Because the reality is, if you are just looking to get into competing as a female, that's where you start, fit model. And then from there, bikini, from there, figure. If you really like putting on some tissue, it elevates only higher, right? So that's my take on it. Definitely shouldn't be any division, any car that comes out the first year. It's not ready. It's not ready. People don't know exactly what to expect, so it needs some time to grow and develop and be able to really say from a criteria standpoint as judges, hey, this is what we're looking for. This is the ideal physique, as opposed to what sounds good in theory and then what's actually applying and seeing on stage.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's do a couple rapid fire ones, and I'll start off with this one. Ellswick Fit asks, slew application and starting dosing. If I'm going to throw someone on that, if they're a male, I'm probably going to start them at about 600 micrograms. And if you're a female, I'm probably going to start you around 300 to 400. And then you maybe titrate up from there if I think it's needed. How about you?
Yeah, I use usually most of the capsules I come across are 250, so I'll start at 250, titrate up to 500. I'm not really going over 1,000; it becomes pretty expensive, and I always am finance first when in my mindset.
Yeah. I'm starting a little protocol. I'm kind of in this mitochondrial enhancement phase right now. And my dosing is going up to 10 to 20 milligrams of SLU a day, which is kind of astronomical based off like right now I'm using between 800 and 1,000 micrograms, and I'm bumping that up about 10 times. And I'm interested to see what happens. I'm interested to see, is there a major fat loss effect more than like the modest kind of like background fat burning that I'm seeing? Is there a major change in my health? Because I'm gonna do labs before and after. My labs are always pretty good. I run, 15 milligrams of testosterone a day, and that's kind of where I've been for a good while now. But I want to see if they improve even more without changing any other variables. And then I just want to see how I feel. I want to see if I have
I
more
think that's the most
energy.
important part right there, right? So what it does and how do you feel? Is it makes sense? Does it make sense?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's like, and then my opinion was very different, 5 to 10 years ago, where I liked side effects. I'm like, hey, if X drug makes you feel this way, I know it's real. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, I didn't get burned in this deal. This is a real product. And then now as I get older, it's like I just want everything to be very middle road, calm, like perfect digestion. Like I'll never eat a free meal that's going to make my digestion blow up. Or I'm not going to take anything that's going to change my mental state, how I feel physically, energetically. Like I just want to keep things like middle of the road now, not too high, not too low. Would you agree with that for the most part?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do one more, Kyle. I think this one will be a good one. I'd like to hear your answer. How to pick a good coach. What are the questions you ask to keep from hiring the wrong one?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's only two good coaches, and luckily they're on the same podcast here. But no, the reality is, I think the questions you ask, don't be fooled by Instagram. And I can speak for myself. You look at my Instagram, I rarely post. When I'm posting, it's higher profile people. So sometimes it actually turns away a lot of people because they're just like, hey, I think you only work with influential people. That's not
Hmm.
the reality at all. 95% of my clientele are people that don't have any type of following. I just happen to also have a niche for those bigger time names. But with that said, don't get caught and not be able to see the forest through the trees. So you want to take a look at someone that is constantly producing results with average people because
Hmm.
I myself speak from being an average Joe. I didn't have crazy genetics where somebody dusted me off and I was already phenomenal and they just made me better. Also, see what they put out. ChatGPT can make things a little weary now. So they're putting out educational content and it makes your eyes look at the screen even though they're reading off a teleprompter. So see how they compose themselves when they're just doing regular stories. Make sure, at least how I do things from an inquiry standpoint, I hop on a call with all of the clients I potentially work with. And I make sure that it fits the vibe of who I work with. There are some people that are so gear focused that it comes off and projects as they're talking. And for me, I'm at a point in my life where unless I know that person has the potential already off the rip, I'm not going down that route because I just don't need it being screenshot, putting online, stuff like that. So I think it's really important to have that connection with a coach. If they don't have the time of day to hop on a call with you, again, I don't know your protocol, Andrew, right? Obviously you do really well for yourself, but sometimes I've heard people say, I don't have the time for you. Well, talk to their other clients. If they don't have the time for you to hop on a call, that's fine. However, are you ever talking to this person? What is
Yeah.
the check-in process? Do they promise you, hey, I get back to you in 5 minutes? That's very challenging.
Hmm.
And what type of response? When you talk to other clients, so fish for their other clients and say, hey, how's your experience been? How's communication? Figure out what you value. Do you just want a friend? There are some people, they just want a friend. Andrew, I want you to coach me. I just tell me I look good all the time, no matter what. So that's the kind of questions I would ask. Again, this is also something we can definitely go more in depth with on like a specific topic because there are a lot of red flags that we can put out that just from our time and maybe our own errors and stuff like that. But what are some things that
Yeah.
come to mind for you?
Yeah, I like your idea of putting out an episode just on some of the horror stories we've heard, from coaches sending D pics to their female clients to to just all the different things we hear in response, the lack of responses, the responses, all the different funny stuff. Maybe without naming the coaches, we're not trying to blow anybody up, but I think a lot of people, our listeners, have probably heard a lot of these stories or glimmers of them in the past. Um, but the biggest thing for me and what I tell everyone in the first email when they inquire is in the very first paragraph, it's like I want you to reach out to my clients because I literally try to post at least all my competitors. I post every competitor that gets on stage. Um, And I want them to reach out to them, and be like, ask questions like my response time. Do you feel like that you were getting a fulfilling response? Not like hearing what you want to hear, but he read my email, he's interpreting it and then acting on it versus just, okay, yep, keep doing the same thing and blowing you off. Ask if they feel valued as a client, like those types of things. Like, is there a relationship there? So I think that's the most important thing because to me, I mean, I started in this industry as a coach based off word of mouth. And I didn't have an executive marketing team or people making cool pictures and videos for me. That's cool if that's your thing, but I think it's all about the substance, and that's what I try to
Sure.
do is bring substance and value. To me, it's a value added type of business, and honestly, and I know you've got a lot of people that have been with you for a lot of years, as do I. I think that's the proof in the pudding. When you got a client that's been with you for 6, 7, 8 seasons, like that just shows like the coach actually cares. So reach out to the other clients, reach out to clients that have left him for other coaches too. Like, because we're not always going to get along with every client perfectly, but so you should get that information. Like, why did the relationship end? Did you just want to try something a different way? Did you have a falling out of some sort? Like, what was the reason? And I think with that, yeah, I think that would be a good topic for. I mean, next week we got a topic already planned, and we got some physique critiques. But maybe in the future, we'll put together an episode like that. But guys, it's the end of the show. I know Kyle's got some guys he's got to talk to. One of them just won his pro card. He probably wants to congratulate him. Who else you got this week? You got a few more getting on stage?
Got one guy tomorrow in bodybuilding, one of my OG clients. I think he's done a terrific job. So he's showing up, I think, at his best. Hopefully, it's good enough to continuously. He was like always in the top five. It's just a matter of who shows up. But yeah, I have one more person this week, and I think that is all that comes to mind. And then I have more regional shows and shit in the weeks to
Nice.
come.
Yeah, man. I've got a bodybuilder tomorrow. I've got a masters tomorrow, and then I've got a masters bikini on Saturday, and then I've got a couple pros competing in bikini this weekend on Saturday as well. And then I got a big show the following weekend. I've got 5 pros in the Florida Pro Show in Sarasota, not
Right,
Saratoga.
right, Sarasota.
One being my wife, which I'm always happy to get her on stage. And so, yeah, that's what's going on for me over the next couple weeks. But guys, thank you for tuning in and listening. Please like, subscribe, leave comments, share the podcast with your friends if you think they need some educational and entertaining commentary to watch. But for next time, we're Unwracked.